You think you've heard all the worst parts of the Prince Andrew scandal? The disastrous BBC interview, the awkward photo with Virginia Giuffre, the whole "I don't sweat" defense. Well, buckle up, because this isn't about what he said on camera. This is about what happened off camera behind royal gates, inside one of the Queen's own estates, during what might just be the most brazen royal scandal to ever go unnoticed. For decades. Let's rewind to Christmas 2000. It's Sandringham, the royal family's private countryside estate, the Queen's personal retreat.
If you want more unfiltered royal truth, not the palace-approved version, hit like, subscribe and tell us in the comments, are Beatrice and Eugenie breaking the cycle or repeating history? Stay tuned. The tea only gets hotter.
It's supposed to be sacred, exclusive, locked down tighter than a crown jewel vault. And yet, on one frigid night, something truly grotesque slipped through those iron gates. A party. Not just any party, an obscenely lavish, suspiciously quiet, and deeply inappropriate event reportedly hosted by none other than Prince Andrew himself. Now, a royal party isn't exactly shocking. Aristocrats love a good glass of champagne and a catered canape. But what makes this night horrifying is the guest list. Because one of the men reportedly welcomed into Her Majesty's home that night was none other than Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, that Jeffrey Epstein. Along with his longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. The man already facing rumblings of serious criminal behavior. The man with a growing reputation for networking with the world's wealthiest and most powerful under the most dubious of circumstances. And he was walking around Sandringham. How does this even happen? According to internal sources, documents, and years later testimony, the night in question was no small get-together. We're talking full-scale luxury, £150,000 spent on imported caviar, rare champagne, and private staff. Some say the guest list included several of Epstein's usual elite acquaintances, names redacted or quietly erased from records. And one particularly chilling detail, the palace CCTV system reportedly went dark at 23:17 that night. Power outage, technical fault, coincidence, or something more convenient. Whatever the cause, it meant that from that moment on, there was no official visual record of what happened in those halls. No way to verify who stayed, who left, or what actually went down. And that's when the silence started. Fast forward a few weeks, staff were reportedly instructed never to discuss the night. Expense records were reclassified. Some witnesses claimed they were shuffled to different departments, or dismissed altogether. The royal household clamped down hard because whether or not you believe in palace conspiracies, someone clearly wanted this night scrubbed from memory. But as we know, secrets like this don't stay buried forever. When Epstein's name resurfaced in 2008 and again in 2019, it brought with it a tidal wave of scrutiny. Flight logs, photos, testimony, and nestled in the storm of scandals and shocking documents was a single, increasingly frequent question. What exactly happened that night at Sandringham? By the time Prince Andrew sat down for his now infamous 2019 BBC interview, rumors about that holiday gathering were already swirling. But instead of clarifying anything, Andrew delivered one of the most catastrophic interviews in modern history. He denied wrongdoing, yes, but in the least convincing, most awkward manner imaginable. He claimed to have no recollection of the photo with Giuffre. He claimed he was at Pizza Express in Woking. He claimed absurdly that he couldn't sweat. It was the moment the public officially lost trust. In one fell swoop, Andrew went from odd royal uncle to something far more sinister. A man implicated in one of the darkest scandals of the modern era and completely unprepared to explain himself. It was a PR implosion of the highest order, and it changed the public perception of the monarchy overnight. But while the headlines focused on the photo and the Pizza Express alibi, a quieter scandal continued to bubble underneath. Sandringham. Because even though no official charges ever stemmed from that party, its very existence cast a long shadow. It raised questions that still haven't been answered. Who knew Epstein was on royal grounds that night? Why was he invited? Why was security so lax? Why the sudden blackout in CCTV? Why the gag orders on staff? And most damning of all, what was the Queen told? Reportedly, Her Majesty was furious. Not just about the association, but about the location. Sandringham wasn't some luxury hotel or backroom club. It was her estate, her private sanctuary. Hosting a man like Epstein there wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a disgrace, a defilement of royal sanctity. And for a woman whose entire public persona was built on duty, discretion, and control, it was a slap in the face. It wasn't long before things started to unravel for Andrew. Behind the scenes, damage control teams were in overdrive. Lawyers, PR consultants, security analysts working not to fix things, but to contain them. But there was no containing this. Not in the age of the internet. Not when people were finally connecting dots that had been ignored for years. And then came the reckoning. In early 2022, the Queen made the extraordinary decision to strip Andrew of his royal patronages and military titles. Not suspend, not reassess. Strip. It was an unprecedented move, both symbolic and strategic. Because it wasn't just about punishing Andrew. It was about preserving the monarchy. Drawing a line in the sand and saying, not even my own son is above accountability. It was a quiet, devastating exile. One that said everything without needing to say anything. But let's be honest, this didn't fix the damage. Not even close. The royal family's historical reliance on silence and suppression had already backfired spectacularly. For years, the motto had been, never complain, never explain. But in the digital age, that's not stoicism, it's suspicious. It makes people assume the worst. And when the truth finally starts leaking out, it confirms every ugly suspicion they ever had. That's the real cost of the Sandringham scandal. Not just the night itself, but everything it revealed about how far powerful institutions will go to protect their own. And now, we're left with the questions. What did Andrew know? What did everyone else know? How deep did this go? Who else was at that party? We may never get full answers. Files remain sealed. Witnesses remain silent. Royal walls remain high. But the damage is done. Because that night didn't just embarrass Prince, it cracked the veneer of untouchable royal privilege. It showed that no palace wall is high enough to keep out scrutiny. That no crown is bright enough to blind the public from truth. That even in the quietest corners of power, secrets are ticking time bombs. And now, in the era of King Charles, we're seeing a different kind of monarchy take shape, one that has to adapt. One that knows the old ways won't work anymore. Not after Diana. Not after Meghan. Not after this. Transparency isn't optional now. It's survival. So what's the legacy of that disgusting, secret party at Sandringham? It's a cautionary tale of what happens when institutions value silence over truth. Of how the powerful can fall not from force, but from arrogance. Of how a single night, hidden behind palace gates, can haunt a legacy for decades. And of how even a royal family, with all its history, all its grandeur, and all its secrecy, can still be undone by the one thing they tried hardest to ignore, the truth. Let's just sit with this for a minute. Sandringham, the Queen's estate, the backdrop of countless royal family portraits, Christmas morning strolls, the soft shuffle of corgis in the background. That quintessentially British image of dignity and tradition. Now picture it. Red velvet drapes pulled tight, security guards conveniently redirected, staff hushed, and behind those centuries-old walls, a party happening that no one was supposed to know about. A party so lavish, so loaded with questionable guests and off-the-books indulgences, it feels like something out of a political thriller, except it actually happened. And the guest of dishonor, Jeffrey Epstein. Even saying it out loud feels like a fever dream. But the whispers have grown louder with every leaked document, every resurfaced memo, every quiet corroboration by people who were there, or were forced to pretend they weren't. Let's be clear, this was no casual dinner party. This was a meticulously orchestrated event, reportedly funded through off-the-record palace expenditures, where over £150,000 was blown in a single night. Caviar imported directly from Russia. Champagne flown in from France. Staff rotated in from different estates to keep eyes and mouths from getting too familiar. And what was the purpose? To celebrate? To network? Or was it something darker, something no one's dared to label, but everyone suspects? Because remember, by 2000, Epstein's reputation was already murky among those in high circles. He wasn't an unknown creep, he was a known operator. His whole game was access. He bought proximity to power and packaged it with wealth. So why was he there? Why would anyone, especially someone as entrenched in protocol as Prince Andrew, take the nuclear-level risk of inviting that man into a royal residence? There are only two options. Either he didn't see the risk because he didn't care, or he knew exactly what Epstein offered and wanted it. And whichever answer is true, it's damning. Let's talk about the vibe of that night, based on leaked fragments, servant whispers, and reconstructed timelines. It wasn't loud. It wasn't raucous. That's the part that makes it even worse. It was hushed, polished, sterile, like a scene from a horror movie where everything's just too quiet. Guests came in staggered waves, some known, some unlisted, names withheld from logs, driver drop-offs coordinated without official records. At 11:17 p.m., CCTV footage cuts out like something from a spy thriller. That's the moment where the record goes dark. And for 2 hours, no one really knows what happened. That's not speculation, that's a verified system failure at one of the most secure properties in the country. Are we really supposed to believe that a CCTV glitch just happened to occur the same night one of the most dangerous and scandalous figures in modern history was quietly present on royal grounds? Pull the other one. But let's talk about Andrew. Because while Epstein was the spark, Andrew was the match. In the years following that night, Prince Andrew didn't exactly lay low. He continued his relationship with Epstein long after Epstein's first conviction in 2008. He stayed in his mansion. He was photographed walking with him in Central Park. He reportedly took flights on the private jet. And yet, when asked about it, he acted shocked, confused, like the facts were somehow brand new to him. His 2019 interview with BBC's Newsnight wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a moment of total unraveling. When the journalist, Emily Maitlis, asked why he had stayed at Epstein's house even after he was convicted of sex crimes, Andrew's response was no exaggeration, something out of a satire sketch. He claimed he stayed with Epstein to end their friendship in person, that it was the honorable thing to do, honor, after staying in a convicted sex offender's home. Then came the infamous "I don't sweat" defense, a claim so bizarre, so medically specific, and so unrelated to any legal strategy, it instantly became a cultural punchline. Andrew's entire persona unraveled in front of the cameras not because of what he admitted to, but because of what he refused to admit. He couldn't fake empathy, he couldn't take responsibility, and he couldn't stop lying, not convincingly, anyway. But back to Sandringham, because that's the night the palace really wants you to forget. While the Queen publicly said little, insiders revealed that the Sandringham incident changed everything behind the scenes. It was reportedly the moment when trust began to erode. It wasn't just about guilt, it was about humiliation. The Queen was known for controlling the narrative. Discipline, dignity, discretion. And here was her son, dragging the reputation of the crown through the darkest swamp imaginable, and doing it in her house. When the decision came in 2022 to strip Andrew of his titles, his military honors, and his right to appear in public as His Royal Highness, it wasn't just about what he did. It was about Sandringham. It was about that night, that guest list, that surveillance blackout, that violation. But here's the cruel irony: every attempt to suppress the story only made it louder. Silence has an echo. And when institutions try to bury scandal instead of addressing it, the public doesn't forget. They start digging. In the years following the scandal, newly surfaced documents continued to feed the fire. Memoir fragments, diplomatic logs, even party planners and caterers came forward, years later, anonymously confirming details that aligned exactly with the rumors. A folder labeled Private December 2000 was reportedly logged in a royal expense account audit but later redacted. A former aide claimed that the cleanup process after the party took nearly 3 days and involved security teams that weren't normally assigned to Sandringham. What were they cleaning up? To this day, no one has given a straight answer. And now, with King Charles on the throne, there's been a subtle but noticeable pivot. More transparency, fewer frills, a leaner monarchy, one clearly designed to withstand modern scrutiny. Charles may not be as beloved as his mother, but he understands something very, very important. In the era of instant access and relentless accountability, secrecy is liability. And that's the real takeaway from the Sandringham affair. The old rules don't work anymore. You can't throw a party behind royal walls, scrub the records, and hope the public never finds out. Not in the age of digital archives, leaked emails, and whistleblowers. The monarchy's armor of tradition and mystique. It's not bulletproof. It's glass. And once cracked, it stays cracked. The Sandringham scandal won't ever have a neat ending. There will be no courtroom scene, no confessional documentary. But it stands now as a symbol. A before and after moment in royal history. Before, privilege, protection, silence. After, exposure, accountability, consequence. And the legacy of that night, it lingers. Not just as gossip or speculation, but as a reminder that no matter how powerful your family is, no matter how many walls protect your name, truth finds a way out. And when it does, the crown doesn't shield you. It exposes you. Because if even the Queen's estate isn't safe from scandal, then maybe, just maybe, there are no sacred places left. Not in Sandringham. Not in Buckingham Palace. Not in 2025. And certainly not in the memory of the public, who saw through the silence and said, "We deserve answers." Because here's the thing: once the illusion breaks, You can't patch it back together. You can't politely ignore a crack that runs straight through the crown. The Sandringham affair wasn't just a scandal. It was a rupture. And for a monarchy that has relied for centuries on the appearance of perfection, that rupture felt catastrophic. This wasn't a messy family feud played out in tabloids. This was a convicted sex offender allegedly being entertained within the Queen's personal residence. It wasn't just inappropriate, it was grotesque. And the very idea that someone like Jeffrey Epstein could waltz into royal territory, dine on caviar under chandeliers, and then disappear into the night without consequence. It shook the public's trust in ways that no Buckingham Palace statement could ever fully repair. And make no mistake, the cover-up made it worse. If the royals had owned the mistake early, issued a statement, distanced themselves clearly, condemned Epstein unequivocally, the storm might have passed. But instead, silence, delay, denial. That age-old royal tactic. If we don't say it, it didn't happen. But in the 21st century, that doesn't work anymore. The internet never forgets. Screenshots don't disappear. And when you stay quiet, people fill in the blanks with conspiracy theories, with suspicion, with fury. And that's exactly what happened. For years, royal defenders clung to plausible deniability. There's no proof Epstein was really at Sandringham. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Andrew probably didn't know who Epstein really was. But as more information trickled out, those excuses started to rot. Flight logs showed connections. Eyewitness accounts, some published, others whispered in anonymity, spoke of that December night in increasing detail. Financial ledgers hinted at suspicious reclassified expenses. Even the conveniently missing CCTV footage became its own form of damning evidence. Because when everything goes quiet at exactly the same time the worst person in the world is in your house, that's not a glitch. That's a signal. And the monarchy knew it. That's why we saw such a swift and brutal response once the story started catching fire again. Andrew didn't just step back from public life, he was pushed. Titles gone. Public duties stripped. His portrait quietly removed from royal websites. He became the royal family's ghost. Still technically a prince, but unspoken, untitled, uninvited. Even at his own father's funeral, he was barely visible. And when Queen Elizabeth passed, and King Charles took the throne, Andrew's exile became more than personal, it became institutional. Charles didn't just demote his brother. He purged him from the future of the firm. Sandringham is different because it pierced something deeper, the idea that the monarchy stands above moral failure. And after that, the question wasn't just what did Andrew do? It became, what did the royal family allow? Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button, it tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.